Liliana, we've been trying to do this for, I want to say 5 years.
Yes.
So we're way overdue. Is there a takeaway from the 10 plus years of you being in music? What is the one thing you wish more artists knew?
I'm going to say specifically for this region is that, there is never a stage in their career where they can afford really to stop working hard. Because I've seen a lot of artists that they start and they have a very nice trajectory. There is, like a promising kind of evolution. And then, they see like the success and then they decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a break. And as a human, I completely understand it. But I think if you really want to build a career as an artist, there is no really like a good moment for you to decide I'm going to take a break. It's working hard is a key thing. And it's also something that I've seen different from, how artists work in Europe and, internationally.
Yeah.
To how they work here in MENA.
So minus being in their head and knowing what's going on, why do you think that is? What is it about artists in general, let's say in this part of the world, where after they taste a little bit of success or they do a little bit, they decide they don't have to push as hard? Can you attribute it to geopolitical reasons, touring, just the way this, we're still very much evolving as an industry.
Yeah.
How much of it is platform reasons, technical versus personal, what do you attribute it to?
It's a mix. I think the infrastructure doesn't help. There is no, also like a culture of how to build a music career. I'm not gonna say we have like a lot of great artists and, like stars that made it in the region and even like outside. But there is this thing of like, okay, you know what, now like I made, I've achieved a certain point of success. I made a little bit of money and, now I'm getting a lot of interest from brands, from, and that path is actually providing more money for me. And, completely understandable, they get driven in that direction. That is a bit of a distraction from their actual, music career, let's say.
There seems to be a disconnect between generational gaps, let's just say, right? I think we're very underserviced when it comes to younger artists. It's happening more now, obviously, because we have more tools to spread. If you had to tell an artist, okay, for 10 years, this is what you should be doing, do you have a kind of a roadmap, as it were, best practices for an artist? Because I want to tie that into how does someone who wants to get into music actually get into music?
Yeah, I think, obviously being on platforms is like a really important thing, right? They need to get out their music. Don't have too long breaks between releasing. Don't get discouraged when your music is not performing as you were hoping for, because, especially now with all the, like the trends, what's happening on TikTok, a song can all of a sudden pick up a trend again, a few years from now. And, it can have the success that an artist would have hoped for from the beginning. Also, like you need to be, and I know it's actually a lot of pressure on the artists, and I understand it's like, a lot of platforms all the time, they have to be switched on, do this, do that. Every platform is like asking them to do different things. So it is important to find the right balance, but it is important to also not start to feel that actually I don't think that I need to be doing these things that much. They really need to continue to work on their social branding, work on releasing the music. And I'm not saying, do it every week. That's not what I mean. It's just that, like, it's not because one song actually became a hit that then you could
next one is an automatic.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's, it's a matter of really like just keep going, pursuing, and really like don't, like, unfortunately, treat it like a 9 to 6 job. You have to be working all the time. You cannot just like. So that's, and I'm saying that because when I was working at YouTube, we would have programs for artists, but it was so difficult to get the artists engaged. They would not deliver things on time, or they would get sidetracked by something else or someone else, or they would have some I'm going to call it like challenges culturally that would not allow them. So all of a sudden they would feel, but in compared to this artist, I don't think that I should be doing it, because all the artists that did a similar program were not as big as me.
Yeah.
These things, like sometimes the egos culturally for us kind of get in the way. And I think it's really, a matter of just keep going, do your thing. Don't be worried too much about being judged, and, make good music and, don't stop.
Speaking about YouTube, I want to highlight that you were there for a good stretch, and you started in tech and then got into music. I want to know how you got into music, because you were obviously very instrumental in building the music industry in MENA, at least as it comes to YouTube music. Obviously, you were the lead there. You did a lot of things that a lot of people may not be aware of. I'm interested to know how you made the switch from tech to music, and kind of if you can break it down to like during your tenure at YouTube, the kind of big shifts that you saw within YouTube that had to do with the industry as it pertains to the region.
So I, after I finished my studies in Jordan, I worked a little bit in Jordan, and my background is in tech. And then a few months working in Jordan, I thought, actually, I would really like to travel the world, work internationally, and so on. And so I left Jordan, and it was, thanks to the support of my parents. But then my first role I got in Ireland, and it was a company that was doing, like software localization, so translating software, completely.
Arabic, I'm assuming. So from English to Arabic, or to Polish, or to other languages?
Well, so my role was not related to languages then, because it was like I was actually working with the tools, so it was actually a technical role. But they were translating to Arabic as well, and to Polish, and all the different languages. And Google was a client for that company. So that's where, it happened that, I worked on a project for Google. I built a small piece of software. So I got connected to some people that work at Google. And then they were like, actually there is this role at Google where they need people that speak Arabic and Polish and whatever languages they have. So that was like a dream come true. So I got into Google working for it was like a sales job within the AdWords space, and that was in Ireland. And I stayed there for 2 years, because it was like a really great experience. Very international environment. Felt to me like that's really what I always wanted to do. But after like 2 years' time, I knew already from the beginning that this is not really something for me. So after 2 years, I figured, it's, I need to look for a change. But, Google, lots of opportunities, especially if you are in like a big office like the Ireland one. And anyway, so I got into a job. I applied for a job in London. And it was at YouTube. And I thought YouTube is more of a product that is, closer to what I like, and so on. And they had at the time a program for, bringing in all the summer festivals from Europe to the YouTube platform to like live stream them live. So it was the best thing in the world, obviously, working on different festivals. Not that I went to these like all of the festivals necessarily. I was very much, the person behind the scenes, liaising, project managing, bringing these events on the platform. And that's, that was like my first interaction really with the music industry and production companies. And and I really loved it. I loved the community. I loved, because one thing for people that work in the music industry is that they're really passionate about what they do, which is, quite unique.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And and so I did that for a while. And then again, there was a role opening in Dubai. And, it seems that I always go back to my, like language skills. So they're like, oh, you speak multiple languages, you speak Arabic, come on. So I thought it's a great, opportunity. And I moved to Dubai to, I was like the partner manager for music across the region. And so moving on to the second part of your question, the shift, it's really crazy, and I think about how things were when we first started. So that would be almost, like maybe 11 years ago now. And how things are now, it's like completely different scene. And it's very nice to see the evolution. So initially, when I first got to Dubai, there were few players, I would say, when it comes to, labels, right? And the players. So my partners were the Mazika, Rotana, Qanawat. Qanawat actually came also a little bit at a later stage, but yes. And the rest. But for example, companies like Shabaka, they had started initially with YouTube on the entertainment side, and then they decided to also invest in the music. So I remember, we signed that deal together. It was so exciting and everything. And now Shabaka is acquired by Universal. And then the other one also that Alfan music, like same thing. They started in the music industry, and then they got into the Shailat genre in Saudi when that became trending, and they made it actually, like, thanks to them, it became like a recognized genre, right? So all these shifts and movements and trends. I think the pop was always there and was always big, right? But it was mostly pop, like years ago.
Yep.
Now we see that it's not just pop, right? And you have like more and more artists, from different genres, like doing different things, experimenting a little bit. We see, like Middle East came in, and they have a lot of initiatives, educational initiatives, trying to have more people like with a skill set for artist management, right? Because yes, this is, and I think this was said on this podcast multiple times before, but the artists, they are still, until today, some of the most popular artists in the region are still managed by, relatives or cousins and so on. So yeah, like just having these skills, it's interesting. And then also the, like the majors and their focus on the region, of course, in the last few years, since IFPI announced that, it's among the fastest growing. Yep. Then it became third fastest, I think, and now it's the fastest again. So yeah, it got a lot of eyes on the region, and the majors started to do a lot more things. But also they expanded their, like the genre of the artists that they work with, right? It's not just pop, as initially when I came, I think it was mostly that. Now they are, mahraganat also. I didn't see them getting into Shailat, but maybe, I don't know. But yeah, there is like some, more and more productions across different genres. So you see that. And I have seen those, like companies, some of them start from scratch, and some of them, grow massively over the years. So the potential in the region, is very obvious, right? There is a lot. So yeah, it's, it's really exciting. And also just the stuff around copyrights management. It's and I think that YouTube had played a really big role in educating people about copyrights, whether it's like the labels in the industry or just the users as well. With its like a copyright and takedowns process, although very painful for many, it had played a part. And also publishing, right? It was when I started, there was nobody talking about publishing in the region. I remember Mazika was one of the first ones that was knocking on YouTube's doors saying, hey guys, can we have like some deal about publishing? Because we actually own our publishing rights. We don't work with any societies and so on. And, they kept knocking and I kept lobbying on their behalf to actually have some representation for them on the publishing side. And then, the door kind of opened, right? They started to have more and more direct deals with YouTube to manage their publishing just on the YouTube platform. And so then everybody was talking about publishing. And, now there is like there is a society that just launched in Abu Dhabi. There is, Sony Publishing. And so, it's
That's
like, yes.
I mean, so you were in the thick of it and you were, very instrumental, obviously, in making that happen. I want to touch on something that has to do with copyright, which is kind of how we met. So Hassan, my best friend, and I had a show called Zano Hassan where we were doing music reviews, and you'd reached out to us very early on.
Yeah.
Actually, this podcast is an extension of what that was meant to be. So I want to ask, I'm curious, what made you reach out to us at the time? What did you see in what we were doing that you thought, merited a phone call or some sort of collaboration? Because I want to talk specifically about that as it relates to copyright, because copyright is the reason why we ended up stopping, because even though we were reviewing songs and kind of, we thought we were offering something to the region that wasn't available. Our aim was never to monetize. So it was never to piggyback or ride the wave of songs that are successful. But we were met with copyright strike or block after block. So it made it really impossible to continue something that I thought was onto something. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what made you reach out, or what is it that you saw in what we were doing that you thought was worth connecting to?
There was still until today, there is not enough digitally, or even I would say on TV, there is not enough what I call taste making. So people that actually discuss the music, review the music, let people know about the music. It's like an additional layer for fans that are really into music to get to know what's going on and like shape their opinions and so on. And that's what you were the only ones pretty much doing that back then. So I was really keen to see what you're up to and kind of, how things are going for you on the platform. I expected that copyright is going to be an issue. Yes, in different markets, this would have been, it could have gone differently, because actually, content of this type is valued as like another marketing lever and just awareness. Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, I think our region was not ready for it yet. I don't know if it's ready now, because there is still no such thing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so the category, I think we got ahead of it, not because we had some sort of crystal ball. I mean, mind you, having grown up and lived in the US, I kind of saw how things work. And a part of it was localizing some of the things that I saw succeed there. So it wasn't reinventing the wheel, obviously. But we were just ahead of the reaction type videos. Do you know what I mean? Where, X reacts to a song, which then became a category on its own, and it did really well, but that never translated here. So it's unfortunate. It was a great learning experience. I got to meet you. Hassan got to meet Nina Abdelmalek, and they got married as a result of what we didn't know would end up here.
Right. So a lot of good things came out of it, even though the program didn't continue. But it's
no. But this is really to speak about the importance of copyright and the efforts that you spearheaded, without which I mean, we may have gotten there, but it would have looked completely different had it not been for
Mm.
all your work and the team's internal work to make that happen. So kudos to you. I think honestly, and this is, I feel like you were super instrumental, kind of quietly behind the scenes,
Mhm.
helping shape where we are and where we're headed. Which is,
Thank you.
I wish more people knew about the role that you played in that space.
Mm.
To bring it back to artists, so it's important for, like you mentioned on this podcast, we've talked a lot about the state of the industry, but not enough has been said about entry points into music. Someone who thinks they want to get into the music industry in this part of the world.
Yeah.
Do's and don'ts. What would you recommend? Just walk me through how you'd approach it, knowing what you know today. What would you tell someone that is really eager to give it a shot?
Oh, these days there's more possibilities in our region than before. Like I said, companies grew. There's more labels to work for. There is the role of artist management is becoming more and more emphasized. There is obviously production; it was always there, but for that you need to be like your own talent. That there is also music roles within tech companies, right? Like music programming, head of music, and on all that. So I think it's important to first, understand the different aspects of the music industry, understand its complexities, and understand that it's no matter where you're going to be working, different, whether it's like artist management or production or festivals or it is an industry that requires, irregular working hours, right?
Yeah,
So
it's not a 9 to 5.
It's not a 9 to 5. As much as you try to make it, I can personally, speak about this now. Having two kids, it will always be, a challenge in that sense. But so you need to know as a person if this actually works for you. Is this who you are, and you want to get into that? And then really also do some research, educate yourself about the background of music and how historically music actually started to bring money, what music royalties mean, how music royalties look like on platforms, by labels, and so on. What's the difference between master recordings and publishing? And I know this is all quite technical and it's quite complex, but just having a background and understanding all the all the playing parts of the industry is important for anyone who wants to get in there. And then if you are more a creative, then obviously production or artist management. If you're more tech, companies, like tech companies, or labels, also distribution. There's different ways. But one thing that has been always key in the music industry, whether it's in our region or is relationship building. So, if you're into music industry, you need to be a person that knows how to build relationships. And I would say more a people person.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it takes. A lot of things that happen is, about connections between people and so on.
That's if you want to get into the music industry as someone who works at a label or in production. Yeah. What does that look like if you're an artist trying to break, regardless of the genre? How does that look any different from doing your research, et cetera?
For an artist, I think it is still important for an artist to understand, the whole topic of copyrights. I think also artists, they very quickly, maybe, and very early on in their careers, they can be influenced by, talks about, well, you have to be careful because everyone is going to try to, take a piece of you. And I find that unproductive, and actually quite stressful for an artist to be worried about in the beginning of their, path. Like if you are an artist and you make beautiful music and you're really passionate about what you're doing, I think it's really important for you to be able to focus on that. And then it's important that you have a team, a strong team around you. I understand that, initially an artist is starting, probably they don't have the resources, so they are DIY. But that's okay also, they understand that, okay, things, this is like stages. So I have to approach things stage by stage. I am at the moment at the stage of DIY, so what are the DIY tools that I need to be aware of, so for example, I need to distribute. So who are the best DIY platforms to distribute with, like TuneCore, DistroKid, and so on. And then, in terms of like music and genre, I think it's like, okay, I'm going to say something that artists don't like to hear, and it's quite controversial.
I think it's important, Liliana. I mean, you're very well positioned to be saying these things. I don't think you're saying it to be contrarian or controversial.
No, but it's because, I've seen it a lot on YouTube as well when I was working there. Artists need to find a balance between like being true to themselves and at the same time recognize that there are certain things that they need to do to attract the audience and be appealing. Like it is a business, in a certain way. So I wish that, artists can just like do their music and not care so much about all the other parts, but it's not enough, unfortunately, not these days. So
what does that look like to you?
It's you release your music, but then think about how this music is released on the platforms. Think about what is a creative way to make my music different and unique from everyone else. Yeah, because there is a lot of content as well, right? So is there like something creative that you can do on TikTok and help create some trend around your song. So it is kind of easy these days to do that with all the tools that are there. But I find like artists still struggle with it because artists naturally don't tend to be influencers, right? So usually they should have someone that can advise them to do this. It's not always easy, and I think as there starts to be more and more programs and like to educate artists, and to like more infrastructure also to help them, control their rights and make revenues from different areas, more opportunities for live music and not just in like venues, but in festivals, for example. It will help. But yeah, for now, it's still quite the challenge for them. Again, I'm not saying that an artist needs to be an influencer. I think mainly for an artist, they need to make good music. Yep. But I'm just saying that good music is not enough.
I agree with you 100%. I happen to think, and I don't know if you agree, it's getting much, much, much harder to be just an artist, as in the traditional sense. I release a song. I announce that the song is coming out next week. A week before, when it comes out, you say, song available now, stream it on XYZ. A week later, do a check-in. That's not enough anymore.
No, yeah.
Not to say that you need to do like dance videos necessarily. Suddenly you turn into, or have a prank channel, but I feel like there used to be a time where a little bit of mystery around the artist was used in a way to add some separation and kind of a larger than life figure. We've very much been in an era where the more you share, the more you're connecting with people to your story in a way that's not superficial, as in like, I'm an artist, so therefore I'm more important than you. So I feel like the more relatable things are, the more it strikes a nerve.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. You've seen it. We've talked about it a lot. There's a ton of resistance where it's like even, say, established artists trying to do TikTok, they're not doing it natively because they don't consume the actual platform. You know what I mean? It's like, so how does, say, not to be an ageist or even sexist, it doesn't matter whether it's a male, female, older, but if you're like, I don't know how to do that, or hey guys, or you know what I mean? Like it almost seems like there's a language natural. So And when they do it, it feels
Yeah.
forced, and you're like, no, don't. You know, I'd
Yes.
rather you not do it than
Yeah.
do it because it's
That's
not
true.
landing.
Yeah.
So
It needs to be done a certain way as
I
well. It's not
sympathize with
easy.
the artists that feel like, ooh, so either I do this or I'm toast or I don't, you know.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to solve for. It's a really hard, but I feel like the flexibility to at least try non-traditional, people get too attached to the way things used to be, and that's the image they've built in their head.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to solve for.
Yeah, I mean, like on YouTube also, you know, like, okay, let's put, you know, like the social media aspects aside. You have on YouTube that, like, you know, the artists usually are dropping music videos, lyrics videos. I'm talking mostly about our region. And, you know, after a lot of convincing from the YouTube team and the labels, they're also dropping shorts.
Yeah.
So sometimes.
Lots of convincing.
Lots of convincing.
Yes. To only get it sometimes. Yeah.
But, you know, it's like if you know, if you know, YouTube is seeing that the trend is changing, that, you know, there is more consumption on shorts content, and you're an artist and you say, I don't find that shorts is, you know,
valuable,
like valuable. Then, you know, you might not see it right away, but you'll see it down the line that, you know, like your audience has shifted, it went somewhere else. And so it is like a little bit, at least, of the thinking that the artist has should be about that. And then, like, also, you know, just content, you know, behind the scenes content, live content, you know. I was really surprised that not much of that was actually done, you know, and still I find it's not enough of it, you know, in our region, like all that.
It's a really it's an uphill battle for a lot of them because they're just not used to it, and I find that most artists are a little introverted. I mean, not that you're either introverted or extroverted. It's not you can be both to varying degrees, but in general, artists or creatives, I mean, it's not everyone or not every day that you see a Kanye that's like outwardly or what have you.
Yeah.
It's perfectly normal to see someone that you think, oh my God, they're, you know, because they have high charisma, et cetera. But they don't prefer to be surrounded by people. They're very much to themselves. So the second you put a camera in front of them, I mean, their safe space is that studio or is that microphone or is that piano or whatever instrument. You put a couple lights, a crew, then you're like, so it makes them feel uncomfortable. So they're having, you know, it's psychological at that point, you know?
Yeah, it's also completely understandable. Yeah, like, you know, I don't know if you feel it. You've been doing this podcast for a long time. I feel it every time I have to like speak in public. So it's, you know, it's, so it's a little bit, you know, of this like mindset of, unfortunately, they, like, you know, you need to push yourself. You need to, like one thing that I was amazed by is, you know, like the amount of artists that I saw go into like the YouTube offices back when I was in London, like, you know, Ed Sheeran, Dua Lipa, they were there like very frequently. They were shooting in the YouTube studio. And mind you, these artists were like quite at a level where they're, you know, they don't really need to go to the YouTube studio, right? But they still did it because they understood the importance of it or like, you know, the value. And they wanted to learn from platforms. And that's not, you know, part of our culture.
Yeah, culturally, I still feel like they figured it out. Once they figured it out, they're like, why do I need you or what? They don't see it as like a long-term evolving. And I want to kind of tie that into the importance of, obviously, since you are at YouTube and you understand kind of the behind the scenes, the importance of implementing new features as they become available to a platform. So it doesn't have to be specific to YouTube, but it's clear that when YouTube is pushing shorts, being an early adopter gives you an advantage that you wouldn't benefit from as much if you're not too, there's no such thing as too late. It's really how you implement it. But there is an importance. If a company like YouTube sees value in shorts and is pushing shorts, it's not just because they're experimenting. It's very much data-based. They've done a lot of stress testing.
There's like an army behind.
You know, or premieres or after parties. Any feature that they add, I feel like, and I know you were obviously a big proponent and you know, hero in championing, talking to partners about, hey, we have this new feature, you should have your artists. So again, participation could have been so much better to really prove the effectiveness of these new features, that they're there, they're available to most artists. And you see it in the West, you're like, when they have a premiere, you're like, that's a premiere.
Yeah.
But for the most part, local artists doing a premieres here, and I don't think it's a fault of the feature necessarily, it's just the sporadic. It's not like there's no consistency in taking advantage of these new tools.
Yeah.
And I say YouTube, that applies to a TikTok, an Instagram, or a Snapchat. Who would have thought? I've been around the block a long time. After Snap's several attempts, I thought it was done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's having a second life now in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And so competition is good because they have new features. I mean, YouTube is now announcing new things to stay relevant and to compete so it's a win-win for artists. It's just like you have to know what the goal of these platforms are, which is to keep you on the platform for as long as possible.
Exactly. I mean, that's their, their goals are very much aligned with your goals.
And they're not secret about, they're very much like, guys.
They're actually saying it.
It's not like, oh, we don't want people to know, secretly we want them to spend more time. Everyone is very much loud about what they want their audience to do. So.
Yeah, what works, what will help the artists. Yeah, completely.
With that said, are you more a fan of focusing on a platform and conquering it before you go elsewhere, or is it important from the jump to be available across? And I don't mean necessarily whether you're on YouTube Music, Spotify, Anghami, Apple Music. I'm talking about like content. Like, should you do TikTok exclusively in addition to your releases until you master it, then take it to like an Instagram and YouTube Shorts, or should you be doing everything at once?
I think, you know what, it depends on the markets a lot as well.
Yep.
Because, I mean, looking at MENA in general, like from my experience, you cannot avoid being on TikTok and YouTube. I mean, I'm not saying that the others are not, but so YouTube was always there. It has the biggest reach and so on. By the way, I don't work there anymore, but I'm just like stating facts.
At this point, it's a fact.
TikTok has done pretty amazing, and it's growing massively, and it's really helping artists' music to be discovered. So I think if you start on TikTok, matching it with YouTube is a good combination, But like I understand you're saying that if I'm an artist, but I want to like really just focus all my efforts and my energy in one place, like what should it be? I think I wouldn't like, miss YouTube from just by logical.
It's not a missing. It's just that, like, for instance, YouTube is obviously important, obviously because of the official music video, and whether we like it or not. I mean, I don't not like it. I'm a big fan of YouTube. But the affinity is and name recognition is bigger than any other platform. Mind you, TikTok serves a different purpose, but YouTube is still very much, you conquer YouTube. It's got the most notoriety, I feel.
Yes,
So that's an important thing to speak of. What I meant is, if you're releasing short form content on TikTok, should that piece of content also live on Instagram at the same time and on YouTube Shorts and say on Facebook or on Snap? Or is it enough to say, okay, in addition to my releases that are available on DSPs and YouTube, should I only do TikTok until I crack that, then take it elsewhere? Or should I, from the jump, have my content available everywhere?
I think if you can afford to think about like a different approach for each platform, then yes. I'm not personally a fan. I also didn't see that it actually works to have the same piece of content everywhere. Because audiences are different, right? So, who is watching you on TikTok might be different than on YouTube and so on. So if you can afford that, it's great to be everywhere. Even if, you're just going to do a little bits and pieces here and there. But if you can't, then I would say, obviously it works. It's easier. It works better to be in one. Yeah, for sure.
On the topic of AI, which many people have a lot of fear around, whether we like it or not, it's here to stay. We don't know how it shapes up or whatever. Does it excite you, worry you? Are you already implementing ways to make it work in your favor and in the favor of artists? What's your take on it, and how should people be looking at it to use it to help them get further in their efforts?
Yeah. I mean, AI personally worries me for many reasons and may not be related to music.
Yeah.
But I think for music, it's obviously it can be scary, I think, because you have like AI tools that can. I remember, years ago, I had this conversation with my husband. We said, it would be quite funny if you could, take a sentence and say, let's, can you sing this sentence in the voice of Fairuz, yeah. And nowadays it's actually possible. And it's it can be tricky in many ways, right? Because first, it's kind of like impersonating someone, right? It's decreasing the value of the artistic work. It can be, if it went in that direction. So given the fact that it's there and it's there to stay, because AI is already at a very advanced stage, it is going to be important, in my humble opinion, to tap into it to your own benefits, right? And so, helping in production and so on. And I think, if artists decide to create, I don't know, music videos with an AI technology, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't do, the traditional, the regular. But it can be as a, it can be like an additional piece of content. It can be a way to engage with the fans. Hey guys, do you think this is better than my original video? And for artists that are DIY, it can actually help them, right? With a lot less money needed. They don't need the same resources. So it can, it can help them. But there is the risk of the quality as well. Is it going to be, are we going to be flooded the same way we're flooded now on social media with all these AI images? Are we going to be flooded with AI music that is not, maybe the quality is not there. And so I think, and honestly, I think that's what globally, whether the platforms or the labels are trying to achieve, is to find a regulated way to have AI used in a beneficial way for the artists and the music industry in general. So yes, I mean, every believe they have their AI program, they have their AI ethical principles. Google has the same. And, the matter of regulating AI is going to be an ongoing topic. It's not an easy topic, but it has to be regulated so that it doesn't, flow in a direction that we don't want it. Yeah.
So putting you on the spot a little bit, is there anything about AI that excites you? Is there a silver lining in coexisting, if you want to look at it that way, with AI? Whether it's in music, I mean, here we're talking music specifically, but beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be possible for talented artists that may be very familiar with just one flavor of music, or, to experiment with, music from a completely different part of the world. And it can create something really unique that could be created by humans, but will probably take a lot longer. So that's, to be honest, I'm really curious about what kind of music remixing AI can bring together with an effort from a talented, artist, because, it can, it can be really something really great.
Let me ask you this.
Maybe it will figure out what the sound of MENA should be.
Imagine if it takes AI to crack it before we're actually able to. That's a good one. But the question is, obviously, there's a huge effort in transparency when it comes to something being AI generated or assisted or what have you. Do you think that's going to continue to be important? They say AI, this is the worst AI is ever going to be. So it only gets better from here, right? So imagine your top 10 favorite songs ever. On a personal level, would you care, like, regardless of whether AI exists or not? If I said, let's say hypothetically, your favorite Arabic song, like my favorite Arabic song is Betwen Nisbik. I love that song. If someone said that was completely done by AI, would it change my relationship to that song? So I ask you the same question, whether now, in the past, or in the future, if a song really moves you, A, how important is it for you to know the transparency assisted by AI, fully produced by AI, versus it moved me in a certain way?
Yeah.
Does it matter? Is
For
there a
me-
point?
Yeah, for me personally, it really matters
Yep.
because I really appreciate live music, and I appreciate the human aspect of it. So for me, it's a lot also about emotions and about who's the person behind it and what's that person's story. And but I imagine for those who don't really care about that much, maybe the young generations, maybe they will not care about that. And I mean, part of me hopes that they will still care, but it's likely that they may not. And so then, yeah, for them, it will be just is it a piece of music that I like to listen to or not?
But is your criteria? That's why I was.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel something and you really connect to it, regardless of whether it's AI or not.
Yeah.
If it really moved you and you're like, this is now my favorite song, and then you find out that it's completely AI generated.
I see what you mean.
How does your relationship to whatever you felt? Is that tainted in any way?
Yes, I think yes.
Okay, that's perfectly normal. I mean, I don't think it's a right or wrong answer.
But it's true. Like I didn't think about this, myself yet. But I imagine that for me, yes, it's just not the same.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're currently at Believe.
Yeah.
Head of label and artist solutions.
Yes.
How is that similar to what you were doing at YouTube? How is it uniquely different? And, like, explain what that actually entails.
Well, so this is basically the role, like head of distribution across the region. So it's YouTube is like one of the things that we do, right?
Yep.
It's one of the platforms that we distribute to, although it's an important platform, especially in this region. But the other platforms also just, as important, and they play different roles in different parts. For me, it was interesting to see, like the other, like the other aspects in the music industry that I didn't have visibility to working at YouTube. It's also a little bit closer to the artists, right? Like get a chance to, influence sometimes when they allow us. Their release planning and so on, we get to like directly educate the artists. I'm not saying that YouTube was not doing that, but it's at a different scale.
Yeah, it's
but the challenges are still the same. Is the copyright issues are still there. The release planning is still a big challenge. Unfortunately, still a lot of artists, even though it's like explained to them the importance of planning your release and not doing a last minute drop. They're still doing that, right? So. But you see slowly you see a shift, and you see the difference between the younger generation of artists that are more keen to like plan and do things a bit differently and so on. So yeah, it's it was nice to explore different areas of the music industry.
Are you focusing on a particular region within MENA, or is it like, are you equally active in North Africa as you are in, say, Levant versus the Gulf or Egypt? Or
we are equally active. So we have teams, across. I mean, I say our team covers the whole region. There's a person in every market, pretty much. And it's just that there are some countries that are there's just more happening, right? So. By default, there tends to be more activity there. So Egypt, obviously, is a big one, will always be big for this region. the Levant. We are also focusing on the GCC, still quite fresh there, and it's quite challenging, I have to say. But yeah. And yeah, I actually part of my new role, I get to see a lot more what's happening in Algeria, and I really find that market fascinating. Like it's it has a big population, it has its own flavor of music that people like, and there's just a lot of potential, and that connection with France. It allows, it gives artists also another platform where they're exporting and they're benefiting from that connection in many ways through live events or so yeah, Algeria is super interesting, and also quite in
active,
the pool of talent is really incredible. And I mean, Morocco, no, like Morocco was for me, I remember years and years ago, we traveled, we had this MENA roadshow with Hala also back then. And Morocco was one of the countries that we traveled to. And it was the most exciting thing because they have so much talent and they are just super passionate. They want to do so much. And the tricky part I find now in Morocco is that a lot of them, they went to France, so they studied in France. They saw how things work in France, and they want to apply the same
French to them.
But the problem is that Morocco is not a mature market. You cannot compare it to France. So how things are working in France just doesn't apply. And sometimes I think they get really frustrated because of that, and they start to put the blame on all the different players in the music industry and so on. So that's a little bit, it's a challenge, right? There. But the pool of talent that we have in the region, I think, with the right infrastructure and how things are going, it's really promising.
What differentiates an artist going through Believe versus doing it through TuneCore, since TuneCore is part of Believe? So what additional features does it unlock for an artist to be distributing or being signed with Believe?
Yeah, so Believe has okay, so TuneCore is a pure DIY, right? So it's built, the business model of it is built in such a way to be able to operate at scale and not cost the artist a lot of money for the distribution, right? Believe has, a dedicated team. So that's the number one difference from TuneCore. So they would also, there is the label manager, there is the video manager, there is a support team. So there is a number of layers of service that is offered. What Believe does also is they use technology. So historically, Believe, technology was quite close to it. They do they use technology to accelerate things for the artists. So one of the main things is the artificial intelligence combined with Spotify discovery mode. So what that means is that there is an algorithmic selections of a catalog to insert into Spotify discovery mode, and it's a learning algorithm, right? So it thinks, okay, the song, we think it's gonna do well on Spotify discovery mode, so it throws it in. If it sees that the song is a good choice for this program, it keeps it. Sees, no, this is not really performing well, it takes it away, it puts another track and so on. It's so I know there is Spotify discovery mode is across the board everywhere, but it's that additional layer that Believe added with the.
And are those findings communicated to your artists? So let's say you test 10, 20 songs. I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible. And you find a common theme, whether it's tempo, whether it's instrumentation, whether it's collaboration or not, language. So let's say you tested 30 songs and you saw, we're seeing that right now songs that are between X and Y tempo or in the key of whatever are doing well, is that then communicated to your artists, hey, you might want to try a song that fits this criteria because it's testing well? Is that something that you do, or is it once it's ready, you just plug it in and it does its thing?
So we give a certain information, but not to this level of detail. As in, whether it's a label distributing through Believe or an artist, they can see which tracks went into the Spotify Discovery Mode program. And so they can make their own conclusions, but we don't have that. That's nice. Actually, I think that would be really
cool. I mean,
with AI.
It is because, but the thing is, it's moving so quick that it's perfectly normal for this to be okay today. And the next day, it's like the tides have shifted, and it's moving too quick for you to. I mean, I think historically that's been there. Like in radio in the US, I can speak to that because I was there. When a sound is doing well, there's a good 6 months where everything you hear is in kind of the same vein, whether it was the NSYNC Backstreet Boys, and then
it's like
Britney Spears,
one trend,
but I mean, that was kind of what was doing well. So everyone's like, even Bon Jovi, for instance.
It's like a formula.
It is. And, if you're talking about it,
it is a formula.
Bon Jovi ended up working with Max Martin when he was doing very well with the NSYNCs and the Backstreet. They did It's My Life together. It's very much, and it's very Bon Jovi, but formatted to fit whatever radio was playing, and it was rewarded in, So there is something to that, but obviously before that shelf life was a bit longer, where it's like if you do that today, it still has a good 2 to 3 months for it to do well. Where now it's like you do it today because it worked yesterday, it might not land.
Yes.
And so it's an ever changing and
That's but this is probably why also AI is gonna play a good part in optimizing these things, because it can learn.
It just feels like a cheat code, but it's a cheat code. Like cheat code isn't always bad. Like, look, if it shaves 10 hours of your time to do something and it can do it just as well, I feel like there are some tasks where it's absolutely amazing, right?
Yeah.
If I don't have to do 10 hours of research and the quality of data that it gives me is no different or better than what I would have done, I just gained 10 hours I could put somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do we work? It just feels like, how do we work the system?
How do we work the system?
How do we do the least amount of work, get the most amount of return? So it just feels very, very, let's cut as many corners as possible. That's true. Honestly, that's the part I'm not super crazy about is how it's being used. I feel like, not that it should be regulated how you use it, but it's interesting.
Yeah. But are you a fan of AI? Yeah.
For me, it's a conscious choice. I choose not to be afraid. I'm not someone who scares easily in general.
Yeah.
And of all the things that would have had that kind of impact, this would be one of them. But I feel like I'm choosing to be excited, and I am genuinely excited. And like you said, I think the legislature around it and being, calling out transparency, where it's like it's clear what you're looking at, because if under the wrong hands, if it's abused, I mean, its implications are horrible.
It can be.
So who knows? I mean, it's just, I know that things are moving much quicker than ever before.
Yeah.
So a big part of it is we're being asked to stretch ourselves far beyond what we thought we could.
Yeah.
Which is not bad, but it's also taxing. You're like, I'm tired. I'm just tired. I want to take a nap. I want to sleep,
Yeah, exactly. So, when do we get the break?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of what this part of the world has been trying to solve for is that next Saad Mjarrad or artist, a breakout artist that has the potential to finally be, not to say Shakira or Ricky Martin or Luis Fonsi, but someone who represents MENA, as in because, fastest growing, and we're going to get to a point where we're exporting. We're seeing Saint Laurent, we're seeing Lunar at some point was kind of spearheading an effort to kind of serve as a bridge.
Yeah.
Do we need that Messiah, as it were, musical, messenger to just carry what we're trying to do?
Export the music. Yeah.
This
is a good question, actually. And I when I was at YouTube, I felt that the whole export conversation and the artist that is gonna make the Arabic music international such a big topic.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And then I moved to Believe, and I was really comforted by what local matters, you know, and what people actually want to listen to. And to me, I don't see, I mean, obviously it's great if, you know, we have that one artist that breaks through and, you know, there we will have like an Afrobeat or like a K-pop situation.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fantastic. And we have everything, right? Like the Arabic diaspora could definitely help with that. And but at the same time, you know, there is still quite the gap between what the I'm going to say majority of the population in the MENA region likes to listen to and wants to listen to, versus what, you know, the rest of the world, right? It's cultural and it's normal. It's what you would expect. So, you know, like I don't get this like, you know, obsession with can we export and can we. I think it would be great if we can focus on how can we grow the market? How can we make sure that these amazing talents that are here are actually able to have a sustainable career? And, you know, it's just what matters with the export equation right now is because the artists that have, you know, listeners and fans outside of MENA, they tend to make more money on YouTube, right? Because the economy of these markets are much better. So it's, and not just on YouTube, like on, you know, across all the platforms. So, yeah, this is like, you know, even though the majority of the viewership is in MENA, a lot of the revenues is coming from outside of MENA, right? So it's, so I think that's why maybe there is a bit of an obsession about this. But then again, I think the building a local infrastructure is what matters to make sure that these artists can actually, you know, the local talents, like let's give them a platform, let them, you know, grow, and let's give them more festivals to be part of, and all that
solve
stuff.
the economics for them to have sustainable careers.
Exactly, and I'm sure when that happens, then the export is gonna, it's
a natural extension of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Liliana, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Yes,
Cheers.
speak soon. Thank you, Zan.